You know what a fractal is if you can imagine a rose or an onion or a fern or a pine cone. You pretty much understand what a fractal is. And that is, nature uses that because that's how you attract the voltage from gravity called life. In practical terms, let's use one example. The solar maxima that's approaching, the EMF pulse Carrington event, would be an example of a tornado. And if you ever watched a shaman steer a tornado with some science in mind, you see them embed their plasma in the electric field of the tornado, which is electrically implosive. And they do that by feeling the pain or the anger of the tornado. And eventually they learn the symmetry operations to steer that tornado.
Yeah.
Well, on a large scale, what's coming from the sun is a tornado. And the shape of that plasma field is actually, it's actually the physics of how angels get bodies, actually. And the symmetry alphabet there was taught by John Dee. It's called Ophanim Enochian. And so that's an example of learning to deal with something coming that's very large. We have a project called Calling All Angels. The website is goldenmean.info/Ophanim, Ophanim. And we're working with Vincent Bridges. And basically, I have many times seen when you invoke this sequence of letters, which are actually what's called plasma residues. It's the physics of the origin of the alphabet. And if you can see them in your mind and focus properly, like golem making sort of, you make a series of plasma shadows, which is how angels get bodies. It's how very large electric fields are assembled and creating fusion, called alchemy. And this, well, I have seen storms the size of continents called. I'm suggesting actually that that's what's needed to have the Earth survive the next few years.
Really?
Actually, that the one hope we have, we know that when a million children sing the same song at the same moment, the effect on the solar flares is dramatic and measurable and replicable. So we know we have what it takes to steer the sun. Here's the little short story that goes with that.
Yeah.
When this is the Shakespeare alchemy story, but when Queen Elizabeth was jealous because John Dee and Kelly were in Prague making gold, and so she sent her spy. His name was Francis Garland, but historically we now know that's William Shakespeare, and she sent him to Prague to spy on John Dee and Kelly. And what he came back with was the alchemy of psychology called the Shakespeare plays, which is actually the fusion science of how many become one. Well, while they were in Prague, they had 1 year's notice, and they needed to steer a very large storm. They gathered the rabbis on the 7 hills around Prague and the alchemists on the 5 temples inside Prague, which is actually the shape of the Ophanim sigil. It's kind of a long story. And they created the storm called the Tempest, which is documented to be what took out the Spanish Armada. And so they steered a very large tornado. It's real. And this is the kind of activity that globally we're capable of if we link hearts and minds. So we have this harmonic module project, and we're planning to be able to link 1 million hearts by measurement and that whole thing. So anyway.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tell me more about that. 1 million hearts. How are you going to do that?
Well, we've been working on biofeedback to teach empathy by measuring when 2 hearts synchronize. They enter the same frequency, literally the same musical fundamental, called the heart tuner. And this harmonic module project, which is to link a large number of hearts, we've been working on for 20 years, actually. But now our new technology is called thelovetuner.com, thelovetuner.com. And we're releasing, and it's for an 8-channel device where you can have up to 32 people into one computer. And eventually, thousands of people at once learning to link their hearts. It's wireless Bluetooth, and it's going to be iPhone compatible. And the idea is to be able to enable sort of family constellation therapy with the whole globe, where you see who is linking hearts with whom. So we're quite involved in that project.
How does this work? I
Well,
know you've explained a little bit earlier, but how does this really work using computers and electronics and all this? How can you say that two hearts are linked with each other?
the,
Consciously?
the yes, yeah, the physics. We were teaching the science of empathy by measurement, my heart tuner invention, and the leading bank in Australia is using my system to teach bank managers to feel the feelings of their clients, to get on the same wavelength, actually. It's the commercial measurement of empathy. And it's very simple. We take a second order power spectrum of the electrocardiogram, and we can instantly tell where the musical fundamental of two people's hearts is lining up. Yeah, the animations are all on the website. So musically, you can actually teach more than two people to link hearts. It's the physics of Tantra, because when two auras are musically entrained, you have this magic moment when you feel charge passing between the two bodies. And gradually you learn to do that with groups. So eventually, we developed systems so that large numbers of people could embed and entrain biologically, which is how group mind or fusion or alchemy is born.
So that's lovetuner.com.
TheLoveTuner.com is the website. We're just planning a new release this week. It's a preliminary site. The Heart Tuner is now upgraded to the Love Tuner, and you're going to see a lot more about that. But it's a very simple concept, the music of your heart, and your heart just happens to become the heart becomes a laser when you feel love, and you can do that with more than one person as you gradually learn that synchronizing hearts is the physics of energy transfer for spiritual healers, Tantra, and group global mind.
So is love the ultimate essence of who we are? Is it the most in its purest form?
Well, I would have played with the idea that love's etymologic roots, long wave phi ratio, low phi. As you embed your plasma into larger and larger electric fields by phi ratio, low phi, long wave phi ratio, or love, it is the primary path which allows your aura to get larger and eventually interstellar. And so embedding...
What does it mean, interstellar?
Yes, that interstellar, that the advanced science is that stars grew up DNA for a reason that the plasma that biology emits creates a centripetal force, which is actually food for stars. It's kind of the intro to science of angels and why our ancestors were called sun gods. In Egyptian, the amount of coherence in your aura, as we said, was called your ka, but that's just like the husk. And from the husk, a seed is pushed out called the ba, which is the portion of your aura or plasma which is able to be projected through the speed of light, called polis. And that has a centripetal force which tends to hold things together, not just songlines in Australia, but actually stars. So you make the stuff which holds the world together plasmically, and so, growing up in this case entails, as many scenes and shaman will tell you, eventually seeing through the sun like it was an eyeball.
This is all music. This is all music to our hearts. I'm excited. So what's for you the impact that it will have? Why 1 million people like this, and what impact is it going to have on the world?
Well, at a very practical level, my scientific opinion would be that since the last solar flare maxima about 10 years ago was canceled, the next solar wind will very likely be life-threatening. And the position of the magnetopause of the heavy planets will direct the EMF pulse like a Carrington event. And so I think the next couple of years are kind of a make or break point for humanity. And I think we're going to need to exercise our ability to steer plasma, which is to say to cause event structures to emerge from chaos. And fractality in time and space is the only way that waves and anything emerges from chaos. So in practice, it means that, your DNA and your heart and your house need to look like a rose, but also your city and your collective mind needs to look like a rose. The more people who get their aura large, the better shot that we as a species have at steering our own destiny. The solar wind is it is life-threatening, but it's also an opportunity to evolve, because that's the sun having her orgasm, and stars tend to like that.
When is that big
It's a
orgasm?
kundalini.
The kundalini of the sun.
Well,
when is it happening?
yeah, yeah, you could say that. Well, you know, whether you believe Paul Violette's galactic superwave, our galaxy is basically called a Seyfert galaxy, which means the galaxy has an orgasm and the sun likes to participate. It's a plasma wave that comes from the galactic core, and that's a maximum sorting event, just like orgasm is for humans. And at that moment, it isn't the sun's wish to toast Earth's DNA, but any biologic plasma that can't steer a tornado cannot, in effect, be saved. It's kind of the whale dreamer's story, actually.
So are we talking of some people not able to survive this?
I think it's quite clear we're going to have high water and high wind and high EMF pulse activity, and we'll probably need access to serious storage and shelter. And, you know, we should prepare as a species for global meditations that allow us to steer the plasma of our planet. The Mayans had said, you know, unless the dream spell of the old ones was alive and awake in symmetry space, we would be blown away in the magnetic wind of the sun. But what they meant was, you know, can you steer a tornado? Do you know how?
So we need to learn that. So what is the first step for some of us listening to this and quite shocked at this information even?
Well, you know, I would say, you know, at a basic level, you start on the hygiene we talked about: diet, environment, yoga. Keep your aura growing and try to see if you can live closer to nature, places where your aura can unpack. But then, you know, if you're ready for some of the advanced work, that Calling All Angels project, buildamine.info/ophanum, would be a good example. We did some rituals that, you know, affected storms the size of continents, and as did Shakespeare and John Dee. And I think, you know, that kind of global coherence is the issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you have a last message for us today to conclude with this interview?
Well, yes. I would say that even though some of this might sound a little bit foreboding, actually the upside of this story is that the energy charge available for bliss at this time is huge. So if you learn how to actually carry all this high voltage bliss, that you know, your aura can be really big, and I mean, all of this can look rather wonderful.
So you can actually live one of the most blissful time that ever.
Yeah.
So there's good. Well, thank you very much for explaining us all this, and we'll check out all your website. Thank you very much, Dan Winter.
Yeah, you know, the new films at fractalfield.com. It's a really lovely story, all the animation. So I'd invite your viewers, send me an email, and thank you, and stay in touch.
I heard about that. Yeah, thank you. We will. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.